Welcome everybody in every life form to the Friendly Heckler podcast. I'm your host, Zakary Miller. I'm the yada yada yodeler, the stoned cowboy, and yes, indeed, the Friendly Heckler. This podcast has been really fun to make so far, everybody. I'm telling you, thanks so much for listening, because this is just really a great excuse for me to see all my favorite acts and really just hang out with them on stage as if we're backstage, just doing nothing, you know? So thanks for listening and tuning in all the time. I'm glad we get this side out of artists. And, we got some live dates coming up that I should mention, actually. You definitely want to reserve tickets for these ones. September 9th, I'm with Old Man Ludica at the Old Union Street in Berwick, Nova Scotia. September 21st at the Deep Roots Music Festival with the Factory Girls in Canning, Nova Scotia. October 1st with Stephen Fearing at the Spoke and Note in Windsor. Beauty little music shop. More to come. In Falmouth, Nova Scotia, really. October 17th, we have Jenny Burkle at the Union Street in Berwick again. So more info about live dates on my website, zakarymiller.com, and all my social medias, obviously. So every one of these episodes has been totally unique, whether it's the artists themselves and the vibe they bring, or the location, or sometimes wild audiences. You know what I'm talking about. But this episode is special to me, buds. I arranged an intimate house show for this recording because it just so happens that my father-in-law was visiting, and it also just so happens that he writes incredible songs. And it also just so happens that he's a lovely guitar player. And it also happens just so that he's absolutely inspirational in so many ways to me. Steve Rutchinski has spent his life so far dedicated to the rights and equality of everyone around him, which is why I say he's inspirational. The discussions I've had with Steve about everything from politics to chip flavors have always left me with beautiful new perspectives on everything, so somehow I had to capture all of that, all of his work, all of his music, and the most impossible task of all of his love, and condensed it into one evening of recording. It was nuts. It was a real honor to finally get recordings of these songs of his that I've loved for so many years, too. And I can't wait for you to hear the compassion he has for his fellow human. He mentions his YouTube page, too, so that's the best way to find Steve, and I think that's all I want to mention. Everybody, please welcome to our house in our community, Steve Rutchinski.
Thank you. Actually, I do really sincerely thank you. It's my real great pleasure to hang out with you guys when I come to Nova Scotia. And so to get to play a few songs of mine for you is a real pleasure. I really... So I'm going to start with a song that is called The Queen of Foleyet. And Foleyet is a little railway town in Northern Ontario. Very little, like a couple hundred people. And coming from a railroad town in Northern Ontario, I sort of have an affinity for those people and what happens up there. So this song was given to me by a neighbor of mine who was talking about her sister-in-law in Foleyet, and she said, you know, she's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but she thinks she's the Queen of Foleyet. So I thought, that's a song.
That's really good.
And so I set out to write it, and I created this fictional person in my mind, like the many musicians in Northern Ontario who are very good. They go out and do their thing, and they try. And so this is a story about her, and I wanted to give her dignity, that she came back home, and she's still doing her thing. She's still making music, even though life has given her a bit of a kicking down the road. So it's called The Queen of Foleyet. She's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. Not the kind of woman you would easily forget. She might not have been the sharpest knife in the drawer, but she sure could shimmy when she crossed the floor. She's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. She spent time in the city chasing her dreams, but things never do turn out quite the way that they seem. So she packed up the kid, she called her mama on the phone. She said, meet the train, cause we're coming home. Yeah, she's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. Now come Saturday night, you're gonna find her at the Legion Hall, serving beer and smiles to the patrons up until last call. Then she gets up on the stage with a mic in her hand. She sure can rock that place when she's got a good band. She's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. Now come Saturday night, you're gonna find her at the Legion Hall, serving beer and smiles to the patrons up until last call. And she gets up on the stage with a mic in her hand. She sure can rock that place when she's got a good band. She's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. Yeah, she's the queen, yeah, the queen of Foleyet. Thank you.
Very good.
I got to play that song at the Capriol Arena, which for me, that's my hometown. And that was a big deal for me to get to play it. And I'm like a local legend with the Queen of Foleyet.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, how many people can fit in that arena, too?
Oh, hockey's pretty big in Northern Ontario, so maybe about 1,500.
1,500 people?
Yeah,
Wow.
it wasn't packed.
No, that's still amazing, yeah. So you grew up in Capriol, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Capriol. Most of my formative years were in Capriol, yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know where Capriol is, how
So
would you explain?
I was born in Quebec City. First years of my life spent way up in the bush of Northern Ontario, where there were maybe 2 families who weren't Indigenous and everybody else was Indigenous.
Like, you didn't even have a birth certificate when you were born, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, didn't have a birth certificate.
This was something you had to argue for
And
years ago.
then I did all my schooling in Capriol, which is now part of Sudbury. It's about 30 miles north of Sudbury, but it's amalgamated into Greater Sudbury now.
So
Yeah.
when did you finally move out of Capriol then?
As fast as I could. I was about 17,
Okay.
and I split and went to. I was going to leave home, and then I found out that if I wrote the entrance exam to university, I could go early. So I wrote the entrance exam. I went to McGill, and I spent the first 4 months of school engaged in CEGEP strikes, because the student strikes for access to higher education. I figured out that I hadn't gone to school, and I was not going to get my year. So that was the end of my higher education.
So wait, you were a rebellious kid already, and then you found out that there was like a dignified way to get out of town, which,
Yeah, exactly.
which was get into school early.
Exactly.
And then you got into school and you were a rebellious kid all over again.
That's what I wanted to be there for. I really wanted just to be somewhere where I thought life was happening, and I wanted to be in it. It took a long time to realize that small town life was really also very happening. You just had to be in it. But
Right.
I had reached the point where I was ready to go, and now when I go back there, almost all the people I know have all lived lives all over the world, and there's no provincial kind of mentality. People are from they've grown up all over the world. It's a
Like
wonderful
Cape Breton
place.
feels like a big town.
Cape Breton feels like it's got the whole world in it. Yeah, people
Wow.
have been all over the place.
So the North is like a huge part of how you identify, right? It's like the North is like a big part of who you are. Northern Ontario.
Absolutely, yeah.
You released a whole album called Northern Boy.
I have a Northern Boy album, and those were songs I wrote about the North. Yeah.
Your line about a bull moose out on Highway 69.
Yeah, that's.
What's the line again? There's a bull moose out on Highway 69.
It's just that the bull moose got the blues because he's only got black flies, but black flies will drive a bull moose wild.
So yeah, you grew up being attacked by black flies.
Yeah.
And that's why. Is that why you wanted to escape, or was it just like the rebellious nature?
No, it was. Growing up when I was growing up, it was the beginnings of the civil rights movement in the States. The indigenous movements were happening. The war in Vietnam was happening. And all of that in those days came to you on TV. You could watch it live. It was you weren't spoon-fed, but you were supposed to know. You were actually watching what was going on. And as a kid, I was really, really moved by the resistance to racism in the States. You'd watch on TV and you'd see the police with water cannons and dogs and those kind of things when you're 11, 12, 13 years old. Wow. They deeply, deeply leave a deep impression. And so I wanted to be part of bringing about a better world. And
once you got into Cégep in Quebec, that's when you started I
got into McGill, which was an English-speaking university at that time. And the Cégep strikes were because there were no universities for French students. So French students basically got to go to community college. A few of them got to go to university in Quebec City. Oh. So this was a strike of the students to say higher education had to be available to students. And I got involved in that, yeah. And
so your radical youth is born, eh? Because after that, you moved out west after that, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and like jump through so much of your life as fast as I can in a way. Okay. But with giving weight to a lot of it, because you ended up out west and started really kind of rallying behind certain causes.
Yeah, when I figured out that I wasn't going to get my school year, I packed up and I went out west. And took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, but that was when the War Measures Act happened in Canada. And
that's with the FLQ, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was quite determined to organize for change. And at that time, so I took up the cooperative movement. And there were about 6 of us who organized the second largest cooperative association in Canada. We had 78 co-ops across British Columbia, and we were building...
housing co-ops?
No, food co-ops, excuse me. Food cooperatives, right. And we were building production centers. We were just about setting up canneries and all that kind of stuff. We were really looked at it as a way to bring about change in the society.
So did they call it food security back then? Was that an issue?
I don't think the term was used then. I think it's a more contemporary one.
What was it about food then that drew
you
into the
food. What was it about food?
Yeah.
What it was about food was a way to create community with people. And so we built these co-ops in all these towns through British Columbia as a way to bring people together to deal with getting their food. And that was, and getting it from farmers and getting it from fishermen and bringing people, creating that community. So it was about that more. It was food co-ops was just a vehicle to do it.
Right. So at this point, I mean, you're already, how old are you at this point in Vancouver then, or out west?
19.
19. Wow. And you're already, okay, that's socially active. At that point, were you considering politics at all, or was politics seen as sort of the unnecessary, the more talk than action?
No, politics was very much part of it. Just like, as I said, from 12 years old, the racism in the States, and that was extremely political. The war in Vietnam was extremely political, and so was the actions that I got involved in Quebec.
I just asked that, I guess, because you went about everything such a grassroots way. It was sort of like you didn't you didn't start running for your local council to make a change. You went and organized a food co-op with a bunch of hippies and like just took it to the streets rather. So it's interesting that you appreciated the politics of it, it seems, but you went with the grassroots aspect, and I'm wondering why that was more important to you than getting involved. In getting involved in the
You're talking about in the
quote-unquote
official political
Sure.
system.
Yes, which I can see you kind of roll your tongue at, like that whatever that system may.
I guess I didn't have any confidence in it, and I thought that the need was for pretty major transformations in society. So,
If I'm going to jump ahead too far, do you now have any confidence in it?
no.
Okay. Well, we'll get further along to that. Okay, so you end up out west. You're already active at 19 organizing. How do you end up in Ontario? How do you end up in Toronto, which is, I mean, I'm going to say this in the intro, but full disclosure to all my listeners, this is my father-in-law I'm speaking with. So somehow you end up in Toronto.
Well, okay, so in the course of my work to build co-ops, we were trying to sort out the question of how do you build large-scale fish production co-ops and build cooperatives with the indigenous and make have a canning factories and that kind of thing. And we were trying to write grants on how to do this, and every time I did the work to decide how we would do this, I kept finding out that we couldn't compete with Weston. There was nothing we could do. We could pay, we would have to, our workers would have to pay us to work there in order to sell a can of fish as cheap as Weston could. And I didn't understand what this was.
This is the same Weston family that is
Yeah,
currently
it's the same.
Loblaws.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's the same Weston family.
Right.
So
Great.
I was looking for answers, both in terms of economics, in terms of politics. How come this was the way it was? And those were very, very stormy days. And I knew people who were in the Marxist-Leninist movement in Vancouver, and they introduced me to a man named Hardy O'Baines, who was the founder and leader of the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist.
Okay.
And I went and I asked him, I said, why, I don't understand why this is, why we can't compete, why we can't produce, and how come the issue clearly can't be people's wages, so what's the issue? And he said to me, it's a very a good undertaking that you're doing, that you've organized all these co-ops, but he said that was done 150 years ago, and the conclusions have already been drawn. The thing is, what we need to do is get political power. That's what the problem is. You need to get that. So he said, why don't you get your people from the co-ops to come, and we'll organize a whole series of economic discussion about how this theory works. So he did that, and by the time I was done, I was sold. I said, okay, this is where I want to be.
Okay.
So how did I get to Toronto? That CPCML was building a very big printing press operation.
In Etobicoke?
In Etobicoke, with
Okay.
web printing presses. And I volunteered to go there and be part of the
Wow.
production crew. So I put
So you
all
built the press, you built the building?
We didn't build the building.
Okay.
We assembled the press. We trained people. We had 100 people working. We trained people, and it was. So I learned the printing industry from the ground up in terms of large scale printing.
Yes,
Yeah.
and again, grassroots. Like,
Yeah.
you literally seize the means of production. I respect that.
Yeah.
And so you end up in Toronto. So at some point you released Queen Street and the Blues, which is one of my favorite songs. And I think the song I'm going to heckle you to play first.
Okay.
Because this was one of the songs that I was introduced to you by Fran, my wife, for those listeners. Everyone in the room knows
And my
that.
daughter.
And your daughter. Woo!
Big shout out for Fran.
Big shout out to Fran for making all of this happen. This wouldn't happen if it wasn't for her. She introduced us. Sorry, I just thought that was a funnier turnaround. But she introduced me to your album too, Queen Street the Blues, which I'm going to heckle you to play this song. It's so good. You end up on Queen Street.
Queen
you get
Street
the
and the Blues was written sometime between 1995 and 96 and 2000, somewhere in there. It took a long time to gestate. It's sort of one of those. There's a few things I want to say about that song. One is, it's a very personal journey. It was about family breakup and then finding someone else to make your life with, and that everybody goes through that. So it was a very personal journey. It took me a long time to put it out and make it public because it was my journey, and I didn't want, the feelings were too raw. I couldn't do that. So it was like my therapy to work this through. And the best part of it was my brother, who is an amazing musician.
Dave Rutchinski?
Dave Rutchinski.
David Raven.
David Raven, yeah, you can look him up on YouTube. He's amazing, and he's, we had it out in life together from a very young age, and he was living in Toronto, and he gave me his time to record and produce this album of my music called Queen Street and the Blues. And I wrote the song for piano. I was playing piano more in those days, and now I play it on guitar. I don't play so much piano anymore. But Dave recorded it and gave me bass and gave me guitar and gave me drums, and I played harmonicas and piano and guitar and vocals. And we recorded it on this old 8-track, it's old now, Roland 8-track. And I swear to you, the recording technology in those early 8-track recorders was every bit as good as you're going to find today. Every bit as good. In fact, the one I have now, I don't think it's as good, but I traded it because it has more features. The one I use now has more features for what I need.
The 90s were just a golden
but
era.
That album went got all kinds of airplay on CBC, and my favorite part is that Sam the Record Man in Toronto picked Queen Street and the Blues and my album as one of the top 10 indie releases in 2003 in Toronto.
Wow, that's practically a Juno in Toronto in the 90s.
That's better. A Juno you have to pay for. I didn't have to pay for that.
Zing! Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
So,
Queen Street and the Blues, and you're going to play some on this. So that's, yeah. So here we go. Okay. Should have seen it coming, had I believed my eyes. When it was over, I just hung my head and cried. What else could I do? 'Cause I was out there somewhere between Queen Street and the Blues. Queen Street and the Blues. Yeah, I was crazy, I was out of my mind, punching up walls and drinking myself stone blind. And that's what some people do when they are out there somewhere between Queen Street and the Blues. Queen Street and the Blues. Call 911 from an emergency scene. In cases like mine, 999 Queen. These two numbers I'll offer to you if you're out there somewhere beyond the blues. That's when I noticed you were noticing me. My favorite color is now slinky green. Took your advice, I sidled up nice. Now every night we're just making whoopee, oh yeah. I owe you a lot, girl, my hat's off to you. I hit rock bottom, you helped pull me through. This is my story, you'll know that it's true. If you've been out there somewhere between Queen Street and the blues, Queen Street and the blues. If you've been out there somewhere between Queen Street and the blues,
That is such a good song because I feel like it captures how sad certain areas of Toronto feel sometimes.
yeah, it's got a lot of Toronto references in it for sure. Yeah.
And did you feel like when you moved there, did you feel the loneliness that some people from out of town feel when they move there? I've heard that some people feel really alone when they first get there.
No, I came from Vancouver, so Vancouver, Montreal, I was used to just go out there and meet people.
You were already a city slicker.
I could hear in those days. It made a big difference.
Right. And so what was the scene? Were you going out to see music every night when you first moved there?
No, I was there for building the press. But I did take in my share of music for sure.
So then your weekends were just rallies. You didn't go see any music. Were you playing a lot at this point?
There was a bar in our end of town called the Blue Goose.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the Blue Goose just went belly up just at the time of the pandemic, but it had such a history in Toronto of amazing musicians coming through. Kind of like what you played down here in Berwick.
Oh, at the Union Street?
Yeah, and the Blue Goose was like that, and all kinds of serious musicians, blues players, and others stopped in there and played. So the Blue Goose was a great spot to hang out. Yeah.
So were you writing at this time in your life? Like, are you already writing a lot of songs at that point, or when did you write Queen Street and the Blues?
No, I started writing after about 1981. Yeah.
Okay. Fran always tells me stories about when you were driving truck for a living that you were writing a lot of songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
When was that then? At what point in your life are you driving truck?
Well, when we had a news press, I used to deliver truckloads of papers to Ottawa, Montreal, Hamilton, all over the place. So
in one run?
I was.
In one run, you would drive.
In
that
one
whole
run,
thing?
yeah. Once a week, I would drive. I did a lot of driving in those days.
That's when you had the harmonica neck brace on and you would just play harmonica?
To stay awake at night, because it was an overnight run, I would put my neck hanger on and play harmonica.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I was pretty my head was very light.
Were you like the weirdest truck driver on the road then? Did other truckers think you were strange, or did you kind of groove in?
I don't know. I just no, truck drivers are a different kind of breed. What can I say?
What was your CB handle back then? What was your CB handle?
I didn't have a CD, so CB. I didn't get a CD until much later.
Oh, yeah, 1980. You didn't have a handle? You didn't have a cool name? Was it Papa Bear?
No, I didn't know
Papa
Papa
Chinsky?
Bear. No, none of that. No.
He had a nickname.
You know,
You have a political nickname.
Oh, I have a nickname, Skip. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
How'd you get your nickname?
Well, when I was in Capriol, my older brother was a serious pool shark, and he used to comb his hair back in just a certain way in the early 1960s. Yeah. And he had a really good friend named Skip, and I really liked the way Skip's hair went. And I thought, if I have the chance, I'm going to call myself Skip. But I thought it wasn't right just to take the guy's name. So when I was living in Hamilton, I got a job in the steel mill, and I was the skip hoist operator. And I said,
That's it.
Call me Skip. I own it. It's mine now.
Tell me that's why you took the job. You were like, you saw an ad in the paper and you went, "This is my chance."
This is my chance. So that's how I took the name, yeah.
So among your comrades, you're known as Skip, right?
Yeah.
Actually, and you tell me about a band that you started within the party, within the CPCML.
Yeah.
You started a band, right?
Yeah, it's called Fireweed, yeah. It's,
I thought it was
with
called
the-
Canuckistan.
No, Kanukistan was a sort of a spin-off from that.
Oh, there's a spin-off band from Fireweed. Cool, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea
So,
how much
yeah, we have a band
turmoil
called
was.
Fireweed, which brings together musicians who, all different levels of professional ability. Yeah.
Cool. Playing a lot of Union songs mostly,
We
right?
play Union songs. We play actually. I'll play one I'll switch up my set list here. I'll play you one of my songs.
Really?
This is one that I always get to sing when we're doing with Fireweed. My voice is not what it used to be, but this song is called Colonial Justice.
Nice.
And when I think of this song, it's a tribute to the unity of the Canadian people with the Indigenous people. And so I think about people like Slado in Wet'suwet'en, where they're even to safeguard their own land, which is not Canadian territory, it's unceded land. They have to fight. They put their lives on the line for
Every
it.
day.
I think of the people like the clan mothers who I've met of the Haudenosaunee and the Six Nations. These are just ordinary women who are fighting to get their land back, you know. Or here, just up the street at Windsor, you have the water defenders trying to protect the
Treaty
shoreline
truckers, too.
and the water system, and the Mi'kmaq for simply trying to enforce their rights as the Indigenous people here to a modest living off the out of the ocean. They have to fight for it. So this song sort of is about that resistance and about. So I'll switch up my.
Yeah.
You brought me there. I'm gonna. Colonialists came and plundered this glorious land. They stole it from the native people, called it their homeland. Resistance to these colonial crimes continues now until our time. Down to justice, end this injustice. End this injustice, colonial justice, end this injustice. Toilers in the shops, tillers in the fields. Native people, Quebecois, our unity is real. They want to unity, keep us from our enemy. Long live our unity, long live our unity, long live our unity. Long live our unity, long live our unity, long live our unity. That's just a couple of the verses, but the song is, the song speaks to something I think is very important for Canadian society to sort out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, which is so much of your life. You spend so much of your day kind of taking in the news and putting it out to a daily newspaper, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have a daily newspaper in French and English. We're the only political party in Canada that publishes every day in French and English. Yeah.
No wonder you play the blues so much. You're taking in the news every day for 4 hours at a time, recycling it and trying to make other people appreciate the weight of so much of it.
But what I take out
God.
of that is the aspiration of people who are actually trying to bring something new. Like during the pandemic in Ontario, so many people were dying in the seniors' homes, and it was the aid care, the what do they call them? The people who give assistance to people in seniors' homes. It was the nurses who were actually coming to the table and saying, "This is what we should do." And this was true in schools and education and health. So I get inspired by that, not by the other. But I see people trying hard to come up and provide solutions that will make the society a better place to be. That's what I see.
Do you consider yourself an emotional person?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that emotion dictates your actions, or do you think that your actions are like based on your emotions? I guess that's a confusing question. I'm wording it the wrong way. Do you get more radical? Like, do you get more active based on your emotions? Do you get riled up?
Let me put it, I think the question is misplaced.
Yes.
Because I'll quote Che Guevara in a
Nice.
loose kind of way. He said, a revolutionary has to have love for the people. If you don't have love in your heart, you can't, what are you doing?
How are you going to help anybody?
So, so it's not that kind of emotion, reactive motion. It's a motion of deep caring and affection for humanity. For
You're
people.
certainly the most you're the only person, especially musically, I would say, that I know who can see things from every angle, whether you agree with them or not. You actually look at things from every angle.
Yeah, I think that's very important.
Do you do that with your songwriting too, then?
No, I just tell it what I want to say.
You boil it down a little bit. Okay. Then why do you focus on relationships, like the minutia of a relationship, and why do you focus on relationships in a lot of your songs rather than political change?
The relationship, sorry?
Yeah, why do you focus on human relationships in your songs rather than...
Because that's what I actually think politics is human relations. How people relate to one another and how they relate, what constraints there are on their ability to relate to one another and to affect what's happening in the world around them. It's all about relations.
What are those constraints, you think?
Well, the biggest one is disempowerment. It's like during the pandemic, as I said, the nurses and the educators, they took concrete proposals to the government as to what to do, how to make schools safe, how to make hospitals safe. So the problem wasn't that they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. The problem was they were told there's no vehicle for you to implement what you're proposing. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, vote somebody else in. And 4 years later, you vote somebody else in and you get the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
You're all just a shell game. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I guess when you're writing songs, the reason I'm so curious about this is because you write such personal songs about relationships. Like the next song I'm going to friendly heckle you to play is Take My Advice. Mm. And to me, this song says so much about the human condition and pride and things getting in the way of a relationship. But it's so interesting to me that politically you look at things on such a grand scale, but then when you sit down and you write, you go for the interpersonal one-on-one hardships.
When we were talking about, when you talk about Take My Advice, that too is a very personal song. And I took a lot to work out and say what I wanted to say. And the measure for me, if I've succeeded, is when other people aren't looking at my story, they're looking and they can see something in it that they have experienced. So then I've tapped into something that's more common and more broadly experienced by people, you know. So with this song, partly I succeeded. But the other part, I was asked, there's a verse in here where I said, don't go running by your baby's house. So somebody came up and asked me, well, are you talking about stalking? Are you stalking somebody? And I thought, geez, I didn't make it on this one, because I was really trying to say, just look in your own heart and you'll know. You don't have to go anywhere to find out what's happened in your relationship. Just look in your own heart. You know it. And that's because that was about the moment I saw my partner at the time. I knew this relationship was over. She was 150 feet away from me. I just like went, boom. So that's what I was trying to convey. You don't have to ask. You don't have to look. Just look in your own heart and look in your own being. What you're feeling comes from something real. So deal with that, not stalking.
Yeah, just so all podcast listeners know, my father-in-law is not a stalker. Yeah.
Yay.
Want to put that up?
Are you going to play on this one too, please?
Sure, yeah. I would love that.
So this is called Take My Advice, and I wrote it as a piece of advice to me, telling me to take my own advice. whippoorwill sounds too blue to fly. The moon should go behind a cloud to hang its head and cry. And if that lonesome whistle ever blows just for you, it chills you to the bone. Don't go running by your baby's house. She might not be at home. 'Cause I saw her just the other day, walking with some man. Great big smile written right across her face. They were walking hand in hand. No, that wasn't no long lost cousin or friend, just blown into town. You don't believe me? Go by her place now. Your baby is not around. Play guitar. Roberta, girl, where'd you stay last night? You know I missed you so. Went by your house to see if you were all right. You were not at home. That's when I felt that lonesome whistle blowing just for me. Chilled me to the bone. So don't go running by your baby's house. She might not be at home. Take my advice, man, I'm telling you, I say, don't go running by your baby's house. Yeah, 'cause she might not be alone. I just want to thank you very much. I just want to say about that song, when I started conceiving that song, I had Hank Williams and Leadbelly going through my head. It was like that's what kept me going day to day, was just these songs, boom, boom, boom. And at the end of it, I realized, oh, wait a sec, I'm not actually doing it the way either of them do it. I've got my own song here, so... Yeah, so that's where that came from.
Is that how songs kind of form for you, where you realize, like, oh, I think I stole this, but it's mine now?
Yeah.
A lot of songs do that for you?
A lot of songs do that for me. We're talking about sources of inspiration. One of them is just songs that I really like, and my way of expressing how much I like it isn't always just learning the lyrics, although, I know a lot of lyrics, but I create my own lyrics for the feeling that it creates for me. And so, yeah, a lot of my songs come out of that.
When did you find the blues? What was the first artist that turned you onto the blues?
Oh, when we were just kids up in Capriol, we'd be, I think there was one radio channel we could get somewhere out of Michigan, something like that. I don't know. We'd be upstairs with a little radio under the, in the room and listening to, and rhythm and blues was one of the things. Rhythm and blues mostly. Is what
Specifically, okay, like T-Bone Walker you've mentioned.
T-Bone Walker, and after it came in Vancouver, I got introduced to people like Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon and
Cool.
Ray Charles and all.
In
of
your
those kind
20s kind of thing. That's
yeah,
when you're getting
yeah,
into
20s.
this?
Yep.
Were you and your brother Dave ever in a band together?
Nope, never in a band together.
Did you guys play much music when you were kids together?
You know how we got started? We both decided we wanted to be musicians, but we had no instruments. So
How old are you?
So we went down to the local Legion, which was the only place that had instruments.
In Capriel?
Yeah, and I wanted to play trumpet, and they gave me a bugle. And Dave wanted
the
to play.
boogie-woogie bugle boy.
Dave wanted to play drums, so they gave him drums, and he stayed because that's what he wanted. And I thought, trumpet? I want to play bugle, man. I want to play the blues.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't stay. I should have stayed and learned how to play, but I didn't.
You could have been the next Louis Armstrong. You could have learned St. Louis blues.
There you go. I could have, but I didn't, did I?
No, you still turned out to be quite the boogie-woogie bugle boy, though. You still pulled it off.
Well, I did play a lot of boogie woogie on piano. I definitely went that direction on piano, yeah.
And you're like you dip into jazz chords and stuff while you're playing, so you have a lot of different influences. It's not just blues players for you, eh? You've mentioned Willie Nelson already.
Yeah, Willie Nelson I like a lot, and Guy Clark and Emmylou Harris, and from that type of alternate country. I like the blues artists. I tend to like the blues artists from Chicago and from the Midwest. That tends to be where I gravitate to. Not to say I don't like the music coming out of New Orleans and stuff like that. I do, but my sensibility more goes with the old Chicago.
Especially those
stuff.
recordings. We've bonded over Hoodoo Man Blues before, that Buddy Guy and Junior Wells record.
Yeah.
Because it's just, those recordings are so different than everything else. You can hear the room. It's very improvised.
Yeah.
Do you improvise a lot when you play too? You take a lot of chances every time you play? That was completely improvised too. That's your guitar, so whatever, man.
I'm not very good at improvising, and partly it's becoming harder and harder because of my hearing. So I really have to control the sound that I'm hearing in order to. So it makes me very cautious. It's really hard to hear a difference between a minor and a major. If I know them, if I know what we're playing, and I know then I can hear it, I can feel it. It's fine. It's not. But if we're just jamming away and somebody switches to a minor, I'm gone right off the rails. I'm still playing in the major.
How long ago were you diagnosed with hearing loss?
It's about. That's an interesting story too. I was driving with my brother in Toronto. He was pouring his heart out to me, and he turned to me and he said, "You haven't heard a damn word I said, did you?" And I realized, no, I hadn't heard anything he said.
So he's like crying in the passenger seat, and you're just driving gleefully.
Yeah. So it's about 20 years ago.
20 years.
Yeah, 15, 20 years ago.
And would you say it's gotten worse?
Oh yeah.
Will you describe for the listeners who are listening to this what your current rig is for hearing? Because you don't have your average hearing aids. You've concocted your own system. Yeah,
I used traditional hearing aids. They're very good until you get to the point where you have to stop your whole ear up, occlude your whole ear. Once you have to do that, you start to hear all your blood moving in your throat. You hear yourself breathing. You hear all this kind of stuff through hearing aids. And the quality of the sound is not as pleasing to the ear as it used to be when you had open ear hearing aids. So once I got to this, no hearing aid really satisfied me anymore, and I came up with the idea of going back analog. So what I have in my ears are actually on-stage monitors.
In-ear monitors?
In-ear monitors.
Like Bruce Springsteen would use? Okay.
These are pretty high-end ones. These ones have tuning forks in them to create the sound. It's not digital. It's a straightforward analog sound.
Okay.
Much more pleasing to the ear, even for a deaf person. Trust me, it's just so much more relaxing.
So you use in-ear monitors attached to a pretty conventional hearing aid.
This
receiver,
is a personal amplifier.
personal amplifier.
Yeah, and then to capture, like, so that you and I can have this conversation, you are mic'd and I'm mic'd. And
I'm wearing like a lavalier mic that would be used on like a film set.
Yeah, and so I put that into the amplifier, and so I get both the stereo signal. And when I'm playing with a band, I have to mic the drums and mic everything and then control it myself. So that's why I traded my gear in for a small portable mixer that allows me to, for each feed, I can control what I'm hearing. It has its problems, but it's the only thing that actually allows me to be able to play with other people. Like, I can't just get up on stage and jam, because I'm really thankful for the musicians I play with, that they have a lot of patience with me, and they understand the problem, and they work with me on it so that we can make music together.
I mean, we all just assume that you trust us so much that you're just like happily smiling because you trust us. Little did we know you didn't hear a damn thing we played.
That's right. Although I did hear that last one was the only one I got through.
Okay, that's really good then. That's amazing. Like, you did invent your own hearing aids because everything else was sounding like crap to you.
It's a very good system, and for home use, for relationship use, it's there's nothing like it. Because if you're sitting on the couch, listening to music, talking to people in the room, like at home, I would have a mic there and a mic there and a mic there so they can hear everybody, and I put all that into my ears. Whereas if you've got hearing aids, you can't. If you're speaking, you're too far away. I can't hear you. You're speaking, that's the only thing I can focus on. So this allows me to have, actually, in some cases, a better hearing experience than most people. If I go to a bar and I can use I have that type of gear as well, I can take a feed off the mixing board at the bar, and I can put a microphone by the person I'm talking to. I can hear better than anybody at the table.
Yeah, you get the real feed.
Yeah, I got the real feed.
I know, you should be bootlegging every show. You're bootlegging this right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's amazing. We're each bootlegging each other. So if you release a podcast of this, I'm going to be so pissed. The Steve Rutchinski podcast. This is your first episode. Actually, is that ever in the cards for you? Do you think you'd start a podcast or like a YouTube channel?
No. Oh, I have a YouTube channel, yeah.
Of your songs.
They're just ones I sit down in front of the screen and record something.
But would you ever start a YouTube channel to like say things that you want to?
Too much work.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you have to do is too much work.
What I have to do, I don't do anything here.
Built your own printing press.
Yeah, you built a printing press. Graham Nicholas is pointing at. It's so true. Yeah, YouTube. You're all set up for Zoom. I mean, you are busier than anyone I know. And
okay.
You are. Seriously.
Well, I tell you, I come here and I watch you guys and I think, I love living in the country, but holy smokes, what a lot of work you guys have on your plate.
What? Just to start a fire?
I watch you doing your day job, and you come home and then you got a night job, and it's like, I'm thinking, okay, I love the country, but the city's got its benefits too.
Oh, what? Just never sleeping and working 40 hours a day? I don't know how you do the city thing. So, yeah. And we actually lived together, which is crazy.
Yeah, that was.
Fran moved out, and then we had a friend of Fran's move in, and it was you, me, and Deirdre Burek, who wrote a cookbook since. But
right.
What a fun time that was. I think that was the most depressed I had ever been in my life, too. Not because of you guys, but just happenstance. It was just bad timing.
Yeah, that was a low spot, yep.
For all of us. We did live in, like, the middle of... I guess we were just north of like Little Italy area. We were in Little Korea. That's where
we lived. It's called the Annex.
Right.
It's called the Annex in Toronto. It's part of the greater University of Toronto area.
Right. Oh, so University of Toronto just owns that whole area now?
No, well, they own a good part of it.
Family?
But I was working there, and so I would walk to work, and that's why we lived there.
We had moose. Why can't I say it? We had moose antlers on our wall above a mantle in downtown Toronto.
They're right there.
They're above. We're currently recording in my house, and Steve is pointing to above the mudroom. to the giant pair of antlers that
And
your
those
grandfather-
moose antlers my dad took in 1961, and they were the second largest rack of horns taken in Canada in that year.
In
And I was with him
1961.
when he shot that moose. I was 11 years old.
They're wider than an adult's arm span. So it's
That was one big animal, yeah.
and what a pain in
Absolutely.
the ass to move. You put that thing up on the wall too in Euclid on Euclid Avenue in Toronto.
I put that up on the wall in Euclid over top of the mantle, and then when my mother passed, I put my mother's picture on the mantle. She hated those moose horns. She made my dad put them out in the sun porch, right? So 3 times she jumped off the mantle, and I thought, okay, I'll put you.
Her picture would fall off the mantle. That's amazing.
She jumped, Zach.
Yeah, and that's a tall jump off the mantle. What did we had some pretty particular landlords when we lived there, and you had a much better relationship with them than I did. You could talk to them because they considered you an adult. They considered me like a 5-year-old because I remember them slapping my hand when I went to touch the thermostat. Oh my God. She was like, no, it's 21 always. Never touch it. I was like, I've lived here for 1.5 years. Please leave me alone. But you had a good relationship with them. What did they think of the moose antlers on the wall?
I don't know.
They didn't say anything to you?
No. They probably thought it was pretty weird. I don't know.
Wow. And then you and Fran lived on another street, Beatrice, nearby too?
That's in the heart of Little Italy, yeah.
So whereabouts in Toronto are you living now? In Etobicoke, right?
Yeah, I live in the west end of Toronto now, and I live about less than a minute to the lake, to the boardwalk, to the bike path. It's a beautiful urban setting. Nothing like when you go down the road here and you're standing at the creek at the mouth of the bay, entering that dumps into the Bay of Fundy. Not quite as spectacular as that, but it's pretty good for Toronto to be able to walk across the street. It's not even across the street; it's across the lawn, and be on the waterfront. And
Yeah,
I
the
go down
nature.
there and I sit down there in the summer and I just play my little heart out and entertain people riding their bikes and pushing their babies and doing everything else. Yeah.
Will you play me one of the songs that you would play down on the waterfront?
Are we down to our last tunes here? If I'll play one last tune, or what are we doing?
Well, that's kind of up to you. How many you got left in you?
I got a few.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we do 2 more then?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
what were you going to play?
No, go ahead.
I was singing about that, the blues song that you wrote that mentions Dave and mentions your son TJ.
Born to Play Blues.
Yes.
Well, actually, this is one of those songs where this is a song that's written by Charles Brown. It's called Black Night Is Fallen. It's a classic blues tune. And I got introduced to it through an album of Willie Nelson's, and I just loved the music, and so I took the chord pattern and I created my own song. I wrote this one because I wanted to...
So you stole it. You stole it.
I stole the music.
Perfect. Cool. I'm just teasing you. I just wanted.
So I wanted a song for my son. My son was going through some hard time, and I wanted to have a song to just bring him into me and my brother and him and the music that we love and share together. So I wrote this for him. My mother had him, my father had him too. So I come by mine quite naturally. I'm born to play the blues. People, what's a man to do? Can't set him down and walk away when you're born to play the blues. My brother plays the guitar, and I play a little too. That son of mine may be half blind, but that boy can sing the blues. Ah, people, what's a man to do? Can't set him down and walk away when you're born to play the blues. Set him down and walk away when you're born to play the blues. Blues ain't nothing but a botheration. That's what Otis Spann said. I had to learn to embrace him, 'cause I could not walk away. People, what's a man to do? Can't set him down and walk away when you're born to play the blues.
It's dark, but it is real. That's what I'm talking about. That's what, like, there you dipped into the darkness a bit with your songwriting.
I thought it was a highlight back.
It is. It's positive. It's like you're mining your life.
Okay, how about we'll take it out of this. We'll get out of this with one last song.
Wow.
I'll do the title track from Northern Boy.
Oh, okay.
I am a Northern Boy. You got to hear about this moose. Everything in this story, everything in this song is for real. There really is a Highway 69. It's not just you call it figure of speech.
Okay, hold on. Before you go out, before you take charge of the whole show here and take charge and say that you're going out on a high note.
Okay.
I want to say a couple things and then ask a couple things.
Okay.
I want to say thank you for doing this.
Thank you for doing it, and thank you all for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing your tunes. Thank you. I want to ask if there's anything that you want to say to the world. Like, if you had a chance to say, what's your best advice for the world?
Well, what I see happening is that a new situation is developing worldwide, independent of anybody's wishes, desires. It's just, this is really happening. Like the post-World War II era of American domination over the world, it's coming to an end. And it's messy. And some people say it's like China's challenging, Russia's challenging. There's all kinds of... All of these developments, in my view, are taking place as a direct result of what happened from post-World War II to now. They're objective. So when the world is in shift and change, this is a chance, an opportunity, and a time for us, humble human beings, to think about what kind of world do we want to live in, and what kind of world do we want to pass on, and to have that engage in that discussion with our peers and work out for ourselves, because none of what's happening right now is preordained. Everybody's winging it, so we can wing it too.
Nice.
So that's what I think.
That's really good advice. That was like I handed you the largest question in the world, and you boiled it down to the best advice in 35 seconds anyone's ever given.
What, say again?
You boiled that down to the best advice anyone's ever given in 35 seconds.
Okay.
Great job.
I try very hard to boil it down.
The next question I'm going to ask, best concert you've ever seen?
Best.
Concert you've ever been to?
Whoa. The band.
Wow.
Levon Helm and the band at Massey Hall. That was pretty awesome. That was just a couple of years before he passed away.
Oh, so it was Levon Helm and his band.
And his band, the band.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
his
the Midnight
band.
Ramble band,
The Midnight Ramble, excuse
Yeah.
me.
And didn't Lucinda Williams open that show?
Lucinda Williams was there, and so was Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. What's his name? Anyway, guitar player from Blackie and
Colin Linden?
No. Yeah, Colin Linden, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it was an awesome show. Awesome show. They just smoked the place from the minute they got on stage. It was
Great.
killer. Yeah.
Last question. This is sort of a lightning round. I just realized I'm like throwing them at you. You're doing so well. Thank you again for doing this. I can't believe I asked you to do this. So last minute. I didn't really tell Steve that we were going to do this until maybe like a day before. Really?
Oh, I had a hint.
Yeah.
I had inside information.
That's true. Okay, good. Yeah. You saw me like slowly setting up recording gear. I guess, how can people find your music? You don't have much online in terms of like the streaming stuff. By the way, would you ever do streaming?
No, I'm pretty much...
Do you hate the imperialism of Spotify?
No, I don't... I can't even figure out how to use those things.
Okay, good. Then how can people find your music?
I have a YouTube channel, and I throw stuff up on YouTube.
Under Steve
It's
Rutchinski.
Steve Rutchinski YouTube.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I will link your YouTube when I post this.
Yeah.
That was the end of my lightning round. So now you may take the reins and
Okay.
chariot of fire out of this
So
show.
This is Northern Boy, and even though the song's about being in a car, I actually wrote this in a bus going up to Sudbury. And the song's about the summer, but the snow was bouncing off that front windscreen on the bus, and it just made me think of this song. So the song was done by the time I got to Sudbury, which is about a six-hour ride. Yeah, I'm a northern boy, but I ain't been home in quite a while. Yeah, I'm a northern boy, but I ain't been home in quite a while. And when I hit Highway 69, it sure makes this poor boy smile. I got my guitar in the back and the blues playing on the radio. I got my guitar in the back and the blues playing on radio. I just slide up Highway 69 to where the sweet water flows. Take it home and watch out for them black bodies. Now when a bull moose gets the blues, it runs up on the track a while. Yeah, when a bull moose gets the blues, it runs up on the track a while. I just got black flies for trouble, sure drive the bull moose wild. Me, I put my guitar in the back and the blues playing on the radio. My guitar in the back and the blues playing on radio. I just slide up Highway 69 to where the sweet water flows. Take it home now, man. Thank you, Zach.